1 month before resigning. A star engineer downloaded 14,000 top-secret files, blueprints, schematics, and testing data for a technology worth billions. He walked out the door and straight into the arms of a competitor. It was the boldest corporate heist in Silicon Valley history, and by the time you finish this video, you'll know exactly how to stop an insider from destroying your business. It is March 2004, the Mojave Desert. The US military has a problem. Their supply trucks are getting blown up in the Middle East. They need vehicles that can drive themselves, so they invite the smartest engineers in the world to a race. The prize, $1 million. The result? Total failure. Not a single vehicle finishes the course. Most don't even make it 7 miles. It is an embarrassment for the robotics industry. But in the middle of this disaster, one vehicle stands out. Not because it won. It didn't. But because of how audacious it was. While teams from Carnegie Mellon and Stanford brought massive trucks filled with servers, a 24-year-old grad student named Anthony Lewandowski brought a motorcycle. He called it Ghost Rider. He built it in his bedroom. His logic was simple. Trucks are heavy and get stuck. A bike is agile. The bike crashed almost immediately. But the failure did something important. It put Lewandowski on the radar of Larry Page, the co-founder of Google. Page loves moonshots. He loves people who try the impossible and fail spectacularly. He sees Lewandowski not as a reckless kid, but as a visionary. Google hires him, and they don't just hire him to code. They hire him to revolutionize the physical world. Lewandowski is given resources that most engineers only dream of. He is placed at the center of Project Chauffeur, Google's secret self-driving car initiative. Pause for a second. Ask yourself, would you hire the guy whose bike fell over in the first mile? In Silicon Valley, the answer is yes. Failure is often seen as a badge of honor, provided you fail differently than everyone else. Lewandowski failed differently. This trait, this willingness to break things, is exactly what made him valuable. It is also exactly what made him dangerous. Lewandowski rises fast. He isn't just an employee. He becomes a favorite of the founders. He works on Street View. He puts cameras on top of cars, on top of trikes, on top of snowmobiles. He captures the world. He proves that he can execute. By 2010, the self-driving car project is becoming real. The Toyota Prius fleet is driving around the Bay Area. They are logging thousands of autonomous miles. Lewandowski is crucial to this success. He is brilliant at hardware. He understands the LiDAR, light detection, and ranging. LiDAR is the eyes of the car. It shoots millions of laser beams per second to build a 3D map of the world. Without LiDAR, the car is blind. Google is spending millions developing its own proprietary sensors. They are shrinking them down, making them cheaper, making them accurate to the millimeter. This technology is the crown jewels, but Lewandowski is getting restless. He isn't satisfied with just being an employee. He wants ownership. He starts side businesses. He starts a company called 5110 Systems. He starts another called Anthony's Robots. And here is the twist. Google, the company employing him, ends up buying his own companies from him for an estimated $120 million. Think about that. He is working for Google, builds technology on the side, using skills he honed at Google, and Google buys it back from him. He is now wealthy beyond belief. He has the trust of Larry Page. He has access to the most sensitive data in the company. He is the golden boy, but money isn't enough for Lewandowski. He wants speed. He feels Google is moving too slow. The lawyers are involved. The safety teams are cautious. They won't let him test the cars the way he wants to. He feels shackled. And this is where the danger lies. When you have a 10x engineer, someone who produces 10 times the results of a normal employee, you often give them a long leash. You let them bypass protocols. You let them skip the paperwork. You give them God mode. It is 2012. To the outside world, Google is a playground, a place where brilliant minds solve the world's hardest problems while drinking kombucha on beanbag chairs. But inside Project Chauffeur, the secret division building the self-driving car, the atmosphere is not playful. It is a battlefield. The project is run by Chris Urmson. He is a brilliant roboticist, a veteran of the DARPA challenges, and a man who believes in one thing above all else: safety. Urmson's philosophy is simple. If a self-driving car kills a single person, the industry is set back 20 years. Perfection is not a goal. It is a requirement. Under Urmson, the cars are cautious, painfully cautious. They are programmed to follow every single letter of the law. If a pedestrian looks like they might step off the curb, the car stops. If another car is speeding 1 mile per hour over the limit, the Google car yields. They are the perfect drivers, and Anthony Lewandowski hates them. Lewandowski calls this the safety theater. He believes that every day they delay 3,000 people die in human-caused car accidents. In his mind, not launching is the real crime. He wants the cars to be aggressive. He wants them to drive like humans, cutting corners, rolling through stops, taking risks. This is the fundamental clash of Silicon Valley. On one side, you have don't be evil. On the other, move fast and break things. Lewandowski is firmly in the second camp. He begins to modify the software on the cars he tests. He tweaks the code to bypass safety checks. He takes the cars on unapproved routes. There are stories of safety drivers, the humans sitting behind the wheel just in case, begging not to be paired with him. One day, Lewandowski reportedly modifies a car to drive on a highway before the software is ready. He takes a curve too fast. The car drifts. It forces a nearby sedan into the shoulder. It's a near miss, inches away from a disaster. Stop. Look at that number. 94%. That is the percentage of car accidents caused by human error. Lewandowski used this statistic like a shield. He argued that even a flawed robot is statistically safer than a distracted human. He asked a question that terrified Google's lawyers. Why are we waiting for perfection when we are already better than the average teenager? But Google is a public company. They have a reputation. They have shareholders. Larry Page, as much as he loves Lewandowski's speed, cannot afford a PR nightmare. The executives begin to wall Lewandowski off. They deny his requests. They lock down the code repositories. They put him in a box for a 10x engineer. Boredom is worse than death. Lewandowski feels he is being managed by bureaucrats. He watches as competitors start to emerge. He sees Uber, the scrappy ride-sharing app, talking about autonomy. He sees a world moving on without him. He realizes that he will never build his car at Google. The culture is too safe. The chauffeur is too polite. He needs to leave, but he doesn't want to leave empty-handed. He believes that he built this technology. He believes the LiDAR, the lasers, the code, it belongs to him, not the lawyers. And so he begins to look for a way to take it with him. It is December 11th, 2015, a Friday. Anthony Lewandowski is sitting at his computer. He has already decided to leave Google. He has already registered the domain name for his new company, but he hasn't resigned yet. He is still an employee. He still has his badge. And most importantly, he still has his access. To the average person, stealing a car means hot wiring an engine or breaking a window. But when the car is code, stealing it looks very different. It looks like work. Lewandowski isn't wearing a ski mask. He is installing a piece of software called Tortoise SVN. To understand the heist, we first need to take a little detour into how engineers manage their work. When thousands of people write code for the same project, you need a way to track changes. You need a version control system. Google uses a central repository, a massive digital library where every line of code, every blueprint, and every design file is stored. This is the SVN, the Subversion Repository. The SVN is the brain of the self-driving car. It remembers everything. If an engineer changed a screw on the LiDAR sensor 3 years ago, the SVN remembers who did it and when. It is the single source of truth, and the vampire has the keys. He connects a card reader to his company-issued laptop. He inserts a standard SD card. Then he begins to browse the repository. He isn't looking for random files. He is looking for the crown jewels. He navigates to the hardware folder. He selects the designs for the Fuji LiDAR, the laser sensor that Google spent 7 years and tens of millions of dollars perfecting. 9.7 gigabytes. In terms of 4K video, that is maybe 20 minutes of footage. It's nothing. You could download it in seconds on a good connection. But in terms of intellectual property, 9.7 gigabytes of schematics and source code is an empire. It is the equivalent of stealing the recipe for Coca-Cola, the blueprints for the atomic bomb, and the search algorithm for Google all at once. Lewandowski initiates the transfer because he is downloading from the secure repository to an external drive. It takes time. The logs will later show that the download ran for 8 hours. He sits there, or perhaps he walks away to get a coffee, while the progress bar crawls across the screen. 14,000 files are copied. He takes the Gerber files, the instructions for manufacturing circuit boards. He takes the testing data that shows how the sensors perform in rain and snow. He takes the learning models. He is effectively cloning the brain of Project Chauffeur. When the download finishes, he ejects the card. He puts it in his pocket, but he knows that digital actions leave footprints. The SVN logs everything. The laptop logs everything, so he tries to cover his tracks. He reformats the laptop. He wipes the operating system. He wants to make it look like a clean slate for the next employee. He assumes that Google, a company that processes 99,000 searches per second, is too big to notice one engineer wiping one laptop. He walks out the door. He hasn't broken a lock. He hasn't tripped an alarm. The security guards wave at him. As far as they know, he is just the genius who built the Ghost Rider. They don't know that he is carrying $500 million worth of trade secrets in his pocket. But Lewandowski made a mistake, a technical one. He thought reformatting the laptop would erase the evidence of the download, but he didn't account for the server-side logs, and he didn't account for the fact that Google doesn't just hire engineers. They hire forensic security teams whose entire job is to watch the watchers. He had the files, yes, but he had also just signed his own arrest warrant. He just didn't know it yet. It is January 27th, 2016. Anthony Lewandowski walks into the Google offices for the last time. He isn't there to write code. He isn't there to check on the LiDAR testing. He is there to resign. He hands in his badge. He hands in his company credit card. And finally, he hands in his laptop to the IT department. This is standard procedure. An employee leaves. They wipe their machine. They walk away. It happens every day. But this machine is too clean. A standard employee might delete their personal photos or clear their browser history. They don't typically perform a military-grade wipe of the operating system unless they are trying to hide something. Lewandowski had formatted the drive. In the digital world, this is the equivalent of burning the filing cabinet before you quit. It sends a message. It says, "There is nothing here for you to see." But in the world of forensics, the absence of evidence is evidence. A blank drive is a black hole, and black holes have gravity. He leaves the campus. He leaves behind the millions of dollars in unvested stock options. Why? Because he believes he is holding a lottery ticket worth infinitely more. He drives to a new office just a few miles away. It is small, it is nondescript, but on the door there is a new logo, Otto. It sounds friendly, a palindrome, a company dedicated to self-driving trucks. On paper, this is a brand new startup. It has no product, no history, and theoretically, no technology. It was born yesterday. Here is the timeline that should have set off alarm bells immediately. Google spent 7 years, thousands of engineers, and billions of dollars to get a car to drive itself reliably. Lewandowski claims he can build a self-driving truck, a vehicle weighing 80,000 pounds, moving at highway speeds in a matter of months. By May 2016, just 4 months after resigning, Otto releases a public demo, a truck driving itself on a public highway. The tech press goes wild. They call it a miracle. They call Lewandowski a wizard. But engineers at Google watch the footage and they don't see magic. They see ghosts. The LiDAR sensor on the Otto truck looks familiar. The wavelength of the laser, the mounting position, even the way the software handles the lane markers. It's like hearing a new song that uses the exact same melody as a hit record. You know it's a cover. Lewandowski is selling a story of rapid iteration. He tells investors that he is simply faster than the bloated bureaucracy at Google. He says he started from a blank page, but we know that isn't true. He didn't start from a blank page. He started with the answer key. Back at Google, the security team is finally looking at that laptop. They try to recover the data, but the wipe is thorough. They check the server logs, and that is when they see it, the anomaly. The massive spike in data transfer in December, the 9.7 gigabytes. The realization hits them. He didn't just quit. He looted the place, and he didn't just build a competitor. He cloned their work, but by the time they put the pieces together, it is too late. Otto isn't just a startup anymore. It is the hottest acquisition target in the valley, and a very big buyer is about to walk through the door. It is the summer of 2016. Travis Kalanick, the CEO of Uber, is on top of the world. He has conquered the taxi industry. He is fighting regulators in 400 cities and winning. But Kalanick is paranoid. He knows that his $70 billion empire has a fatal flaw. The flaw is the human driver. They need to be paid. They need to sleep. They take a cut of every ride. Kalanick knows that if Google or anyone else figures out how to remove the driver before he does, Uber goes to zero. It is an existential threat. He calls it the big red button. He needs a miracle. And then he meets Anthony Lewandowski. To Kalanick, Lewandowski isn't just an engineer. He is a brother in arms. They are both aggressive. They both believe rules are for other people. When Lewandowski pitches his new truck company, Otto, Kalanick doesn't see trucks. He sees a shortcut. Otto is only 6 months old. It has barely released a product. In the normal world, you don't buy a 6-month-old startup for hundreds of millions of dollars. But this is war. Kalanick offers to buy Otto for $680 million. It is an insane number. It is a desperate number. Pause. Read that clause. In almost every acquisition, the buyer asks the seller, "Do you stole anything?" If the answer turns out to be yes, the deal is off. Uber did the opposite. They signed a document saying that if Lewandowski did steal trade secrets, and if Google did sue him, Uber would pay his legal bills. They literally insured him against theft. This wasn't an accident. Uber hired a forensic firm, Stross Friedberg, to do due diligence. The investigators looked at Lewandowski's devices. They found evidence of the Google files. They explicitly warned Kalanick. He has the data. Kalanick saw the red flags. He saw the smoke, and he decided to buy the fire anyway. He believed that possession of the data wasn't the same as using it. Or maybe he just didn't care. He wanted the crown jewels. The deal closes in August 2016. Lewandowski is now the head of Uber's self-driving division. He reports directly to Kalanick. They are the new kings of Silicon Valley, but they made a critical error. They assumed Google would be too slow, too bureaucratic, or too scared to fight back. They forgot that Google sees everything, including the emails. It is December 13th, 2016. The heist was months ago. Uber has successfully acquired Otto. Lewandowski is leading their team. To the outside world, the crime has been perfect. There are no alarms ringing, no police cars, just business as usual. Until one specific email lands in the wrong inbox. The email comes from a hardware vendor called Gorilla Circuits. They are a third-party manufacturer that prints circuit boards. They work for everyone in Silicon Valley, Apple, Google, and now Uber. They are just the middleman. And like any middleman handling thousands of orders, sometimes they get confused. The vendor is trying to clarify a technical question about a new circuit board they are printing for Uber. But the employee at the vendor makes a tiny fatal error. Maybe it was autocomplete. Maybe it was muscle memory. But in the CC field, instead of typing an Uber email address, they type a Google email address. The email travels through the internet and lands in the inbox of a Waymo engineer. He opens it. He sees an attachment. It's a schematic for a printed circuit board. It is titled Otis, Uber's new LiDAR system. He shouldn't be seeing this. It's a competitor's secret design. He zooms in. He looks at the pin configuration. He looks at the mounting holes. He looks at the voltage regulators. He knows this board. He spent years designing it. It isn't just similar to Google's design. It is Google's design. Look at these two designs. On the left, the Google Fuji board. On the right, the Uber Otis board. Can you spot the difference? Neither could the engineer, because the distance between the mounting holes is identical to the micrometer. The copper traces follow the exact same path. It wasn't an inspired by design. It was a photocopy. The engineer walks straight to legal. For months, Google had suspected that Lewandowski stole something. They had the forensic data of the download, but they didn't have proof that Uber was using it. This email changed everything. This was the smoking gun. This single email turned a suspicion into a lawsuit. It proved that the intellectual property Lewandowski downloaded didn't just stay on his laptop. It had been uploaded into the brains of Uber's self-driving cars. It had polluted their entire supply chain. This brings us to a critical vulnerability that most companies ignore. Your supply chain. You can have the best firewalls in the world, but if your vendor sends your blueprints to your competitor, you are finished. Step 1. Audit your vendors. Do they work for your competitors? Step 2. Use code names. Your vendor should never know that Project X is a self-driving car. Step 3. Data compartmentalization. Never send the entire schematic to one vendor. Send them pieces. Waymo files the lawsuit. They don't just sue for money. They sue for an injunction to stop Uber from using the technology immediately. If they win, Uber's self-driving cars will be parked. Kalanick's big red button will be disconnected. The war has officially begun. It is late December 2016. The lawsuit has been filed, but Google needs more than just a suspicious email to win in court. They need a digital smoking gun. They need to prove exactly when and how Lewandowski took the files. They assemble a team of forensic analysts, the digital detectives of Silicon Valley. These analysts don't look for fingerprints or DNA. They look for timestamps. They dive into the server logs from a year ago. At first, it looks like finding a needle in a haystack. The SVN repository handles millions of requests a day. But then, they find it. It's a spike. A massive, anomalous spike in data traffic. On December 11th, 2015, Anthony Lewandowski's credentials were used to access the repository, but he wasn't checking out a file to work on it. He was running a command that no engineer ever runs. He was running a recursive checkout. In plain English, he was telling the server, give me everything, every folder, every subfolder, every version of every file ever created. The logs show that his laptop pulled data for 8 straight hours. Here is the terrifying part. When this download happened, no alarms went off. No security guard came running. Why? Because Lewandowski had God mode. He was a top-tier engineer. The system was designed to trust him. It assumed that if he was downloading the entire history of the project, he must have a good reason. It's the paradox of cybersecurity. The people you trust the most are the ones who can hurt you the most. The forensic team pieces together the timeline of the heist. December 11. The download begins. December 14. He connects a generic card reader to his laptop. December 18. He accesses the files again to verify them. January 4. He reformats the laptop. They can even see what he took. It wasn't random. He targeted the design folder. He targeted the source code folder. He specifically downloaded the files related to the Fuji LiDAR system, the exact technology that showed up in that accidental email. It was surgical. This evidence changes the game. It proves intent. You don't accidentally download 9.7 gigabytes of trade secrets. You don't accidentally wipe your laptop days before quitting. Google now knows that this wasn't just a rogue engineer taking some notes with him. This was a premeditated extraction of their entire intellectual property portfolio. The lawyers at Waymo call this the treasure trove, and they realize that if Lewandowski took this to Uber, then Uber's entire self-driving program is built on stolen ground. It is fruit of the poisonous tree. But the forensic trail doesn't end with the download. The analysts find something else, something even more damaging than the stolen files. They find the text messages. While Lewandowski was wiping his laptop, he wasn't just talking to his co-founders. He was talking to the CEO of his biggest competitor. In the world of corporate litigation, there is a phase called discovery. It sounds adventurous. It is actually incredibly boring. It involves armies of junior lawyers reading millions of pages of emails, memos, and Slack messages, looking for a single sentence that proves a crime. Uber fought hard to keep their internal communications secret, but the judge ordered them to hand it over. And when the Waymo lawyers finally got access to the private messages between Travis Kalanick and Anthony Lewandowski, they didn't find boring corporate memos. They found a love story. Not a romantic love story. A bromance. A meeting of minds. The text revealed two men who see themselves not as CEO and employee, but as warlords conquering a digital nation. They finish each other's sentences. They share a deep, almost religious belief that rules do not apply to them. The messages are frantic. They are sent at all hours of the night. Kalanick calls Lewandowski a brother from another mother. They talk about crushing the competition. They talk about the cheat codes of life. It provides a psychological window into the heist. Lewandowski wasn't stealing the files just for money. He was stealing them because he wanted to impress Kalanick. He was bringing a dowry to the marriage. But amidst the bravado and the emojis, there are darker exchanges. Specific references to the technology. Discussions about lasers and sensors that date back to before Lewandowski had officially left Google. They are discussing the very technology that Uber claimed they developed independently. And then, the lawyers find the phrase that pays. In a discussion about the acquisition, about the files, and about the due diligence report that warned them about the theft, Lewandowski types an instruction regarding a sensitive document. He writes, "Burn after reading." It is a line straight out of a spy novel. It is the kind of thing you say when you know you are doing something illegal. The problem is, this isn't a spy novel. It is a text message. And in the digital age, you cannot burn a text message. You can delete it from your phone. You can throw the phone in the ocean. But the data lives on servers. It lives on backups. It lives in the cloud. Here is a technical reality that every CEO needs to understand. When you hit delete, you aren't erasing the data. You are simply removing the pointer that tells the computer where the data is. The ones and zeros are still written on the drive until they are overwritten by new data. Digital forensics is the art of reading the ghost data. Writing burn after reading in a digital format is like whispering a secret into a megaphone and then asking the crowd to forget it. When Kalinek is confronted with these texts, the "I didn't know" defense begins to crumble. The narrative changes. It is no longer about a rogue engineer acting alone. It is about a conspiracy. The text suggests that the CEO of Uber wasn't just a passive recipient of the stolen tech, he was the architect of the environment that demanded it. The texts reveal a joint defense agreement, a pact. They agree to protect each other. But as the pressure from the lawsuit mounts, and as the shareholders begin to see the reputational damage, that pact is tested. The bromance begins to sour. Kalinek realizes that his brother might cost him his company. The burn after reading text becomes the centerpiece of the trial. It is stamped on giant poster boards in the courtroom. It is the smoking gun that proves consciousness of guilt. You don't ask someone to burn a document if it contains a recipe for cookies. You ask them to burn it if it contains the blueprints to a stolen empire. And now, the fire they started is about to burn them both. It is February 5th, 2018. The eyes of the entire technology world are fixed on a single federal courthouse in San Francisco. Inside, the two most valuable startups in history, Uber and Waymo, are about to fight to the death. The air in the courtroom is thin. You can practically smell the legal fees. Travis Kalanick takes the stand. He has already been ousted as CEO of Uber, forced out by his own board months prior. But today, he isn't fighting for his job. He is fighting for his legacy. If Uber loses this trial, their self-driving cars, the future of the company, could be banned from the roads forever. The questioning is brutal. Waymo's lawyers paint a picture of a CEO who is desperate. They show the texts. They show the emails. They ask him why he wanted to meet Lewandowski in secret. Kalanick plays it cool. He admits he wanted to win. He admits he wanted the best talent, but he denies he wanted the files. He calls it a talent acquisition, not a heist. But there is an empty chair in this courtroom. The man at the center of it all, Anthony Lewandowski, is not on the stand. He isn't defending himself. He isn't defending Uber. He is doing the one thing that makes an innocent man look incredibly guilty. He is pleading the fifth over and over again. He refuses to answer questions to avoid self-incrimination. In a civil trial, the jury is allowed to interpret that silence however they want, and the silence is deafening. The trial is expected to last weeks. It is supposed to be a bloodbath, but then on the fifth day, something strange happens. The lawyers ask for a recess. They go into a back room. Hours pass. When they come out, they aren't holding arguments. They are holding a piece of paper. It's over. Just like that. Uber agrees to pay Waymo $245 million in equity. They agree to ensure that no Waymo technology is used in their cars. It is a surrender. Kalanick wanted a fight, but the new CEO of Uber, Dara Khosrowshahi, wanted peace. He wrote a check to make the problem go away. But writing a check doesn't fix everything. The civil trial ends, but the criminal investigation is just beginning. The judge, William Alsup, has seen enough evidence to refer the case to the Department of Justice. He famously says, "I have never seen a record of trade secret theft this strong in my life." Uber fires Lewandowski. Google sues him personally. He is ordered to pay $179 million to Google for violating his contract. He declares bankruptcy. The golden boy, who once sold a company for $680 million, is now broke. And then the FBI comes knocking again. In August 2019, he is indicted on 33 counts of theft and attempted theft of trade secrets. He faces decades in prison. The 10X engineer who thought he could hack the legal system the way he hacked a motorcycle finds out that the law has no back doors. Remember the text he sent? The arrogance. Standing before the judge at his sentencing, that arrogance is gone. He apologizes. He calls his actions the biggest mistake of his life. The judge sentences him to 18 months in federal prison, It is a tragic fall. The man who wanted to automate the world is now locked in a cage. But this is Silicon Valley, and the story has one final, bizarre twist. Lewandowski never serves his full time. On the very last day of his presidency, Donald Trump issues a pardon. Lewandowski is free, but the damage is done. The industry has changed. The move fast and break things era is over, and every engineer in the valley now knows exactly what happens when you try to take the code with you. The dust has settled. Anthony Lewandowski is a felon. Uber has paid $250 million in penance. The God mode access has been revoked. But if you think this is just a story about self-driving cars, you are missing the point. This is a story about the fragility of secrets in the digital age. Every company, whether you sell software or coffee, has a secret sauce. It might be a client list. It might be a pricing formula. It might be a recipe. And right now, that secret is sitting on a hard drive, accessible by an employee who feels underappreciated, underpaid, or just bored. Lewandowski wasn't a master hacker. He didn't break in. He walked in. He had the key. So how do you stop the next Lewandowski? You can't stop ambition. You can't stop greed. But you can build a system that makes theft impossible to hide. We call this the corporate immunization protocol. It consists of 3 layers. Layer 1, the silo strategy. Google made a fatal mistake. They allowed their top engineers access to everything. The LiDAR team could see the software team could see the hardware. They prioritized collaboration over security. You need to compartmentalize. If an engineer is working on the brakes, they shouldn't have access to the engine schematics. In the spy world, this is called need to know. In the corporate world, it's called survival. If Lewandowski had only been able to download his specific work, the damage would have been contained. Instead, he took the whole car. Layer 2, the tripwire. Remember the 9.7 gigabytes? The massive spike in data traffic that went unnoticed for months? That is inexcusable. Modern IT systems allow for anomaly detection. You need to set a baseline. If employee X usually downloads 500 megabytes a day, and suddenly on a Friday night they download 50 gigabytes, a siren should go off on the chief security officer's phone. It shouldn't be a log checked 6 months later, during a lawsuit. It should be a kill switch that triggers in real time. Layer 3, the golden handcuffs and the garden leave. When a key employee resigns to go to a competitor, you do not let them go back to their desk to wrap things up. You do not let them say goodbye. You walk them out of the building immediately. This is called garden leave. You pay them their full salary for 3 to 6 months to sit in their garden and do nothing. It keeps them out of the competitor's building, and it cuts off their access to your data the second their loyalty shifts. Google let Lewandowski walk around for weeks after he signaled his intent. That was the window of opportunity. But there is a 4th, invisible layer, the hardest one to build. Culture. Lewandowski left because he felt stifled. He felt the company was too slow. He felt no loyalty because he felt the company had no loyalty to his vision. The most dangerous insider isn't the one who wants money. It's the one who believes they can do it better than you. The one who thinks they own the idea because they did the work. Today, Waymo is still the leader in autonomous driving. Their cars are taxiing passengers around Phoenix and San Francisco. Uber sold off its self-driving unit, abandoning the dream that Kalanick risked everything for. The heist failed. The files were returned. The lawsuit was settled. But the code, the ideas, once an idea is unlocked, it can never truly be put back in the box. Lewandowski showed the world that the biggest threat to a technology company isn't a rival across the street. It's the genius sitting 3 desks down, staring at a progress bar, waiting for the download to finish.